Going live with Tommy Hackenbruck. Tommy, thank you so much for chunking out a little bit of time today to just come on and shoot the shit with me.
Of course, man. I'm just excited to catch up with you. It's been a while.
Yeah,
since we're coaching together in Salt Lake.
Yeah, it's been a hot minute. I was actually thinking about that recently. It's hard to believe that was almost 4.5, 5 years ago when I first came to Salt Lake.
2015?
Yeah. Somewhere in there, 2015, 2016, because I had to do like a year and a half worth of prereqs before grad school started. And then grad school was another 2.5 year experience. And so, yeah, almost 5 years.
Do you regret any of that time spent in academia? No. Now that you're out of it, or are you glad you did everything you did?
Really glad that I did the academia experience. Like the learning was incredible. So from that standpoint, it was incredibly beneficial. It's just more, I don't want to do research for a living. That was the only reason I decided I wanted to leave. I was like, okay, I don't want to write grants and do research for a living. I would rather run a business and work and help other humans, either training or talking and helping with coaches. So that was the primary reason, but I actually really enjoyed being in the lab because you learn a ton. You're constantly challenged mentally. The conversations are the biggest thing I miss. But
yeah,
you
ever heard that term 50-pound brain?
No.
That's how I would always describe you to people. I'd be like, yeah, James, he's got a 50-pound brain. Out of any coach I've met, I'm trying to rack my brain. You're probably the most passionate, maybe by far the most passionate about the geeky part of sports science and strength and conditioning. Like it always exuded, and you just how excited you got about talking about that stuff. So makes sense. Like you're really cut out for it, but I'm glad you're outside of the lab, sharing the information now and educating coaches, because you got a wealth of knowledge.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you. So let's do this before we get off and running too much. For the people who are listening who maybe don't know who you are, can we give them just a quick background on Tommy Hackenbruck, who you are? Because you have an incredibly impressive background as both an athlete, competitive athlete, and then a lot of time spent as a coach and a gym owner as well.
Yeah, I have trouble sitting still, I guess. I guess my background, my sports background is significantly just college football. Lots of stuff before that, but played University of Utah, played linebacker up there, and that's where I kind of really got exposed to, just high-level success, high-level organizations, high-level teams. And I think that really just kind of set my path and set my trajectory afterward. And then from there, spent a few years in construction. I've always kind of tried to follow my passion. And I was either following my passion or I was avoiding getting a desk job. It was one or the other, or both. So I did that, and then I just kind of dove into gym ownership. I guess you could say I drank the Kool-Aid with CrossFit. I, did a few workouts and decided to take a weekend seminar and start coaching people, like most of us did. So yeah, that took me back to Salt Lake in 2009. I was there till 3 years ago, and just sold the gym this year. But I've been a gym owner and a CrossFit athlete. Coached a couple CrossFit athletes, been a team member, and I guess unofficially the coach of my team that I was on. I felt more like a teammate than a coach. Actually had a good friend doing most of our programming, so he was kind of in a coach role too. But you know how it goes, like with made up sports. It's like beer league hockey or something, right? Like there's no coach. Like like there's just the players out on the ice or whatever. It's like rec league stuff, and one person. Basically, if you're the coach, the designated coach, it just means you have to do all the crappy stuff, like book hotels and book flights, and like make sure that other teammates aren't, forgetting to do what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, it's a lot of figuring it out on the fly.
Yeah, glorified babysitting of adults that act like children.
So you linebacker at the University of Utah, and then as a competitive CrossFit athlete, you guys won the team competition 3 times?
No, we won
Won the team
twice,
twice.
2012 and
And
13.
then as an individual, you had a pretty successful run there as well with a handful of top 10 finishes, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I had 5, let me see, now 4 individual appearances and like 3 top 10s. So I always thought I had a good chance when I got to the CrossFit Games, as long as there wasn't too much CrossFit involved. I was always more nervous about just getting there than competing once I was there because I'm a taller guy. You can't really tell in on a computer screen in a podcast.
You're a
If you put
giant
me
in
next
CrossFit world.
if you put me next to a bunch of CrossFitters, I look like a giant. And if you see me on the street, I probably look like some like above average, height, below average looks.
Well, actually, it's funny. I have a mutual friend coming on here in a few weeks. Spencer Hendel is going to come on, and we're going to chat because we grew up together back in Charlotte, and he's a similar type of giant in the CrossFit world where it's like just from your height and your limbs and your levers, it's like, bro, it's going to take you so long to cycle through movements compared to somebody who's 5'8".
Yeah. Spencer, we're almost identical in size, our size and kind of very similar in competitions too, strengths and weaknesses. And he was a hell of an athlete from what I hear, probably like, I mean, his dad is a professional football player, Andy, and I know Spencer, like, I've heard he was a pretty legit baseball player, like probably could have played the big leagues, maybe not, but they had a lot of the tools for that.
Yeah, he threw very hard from a very early age. It's like, yeah, Andy, his dad, is a unbelievable athlete, linebacker for the Dolphins in the NFL for a while. Spec got a lot of that. Dude's just like super impressive in a lot of ways. Like just a phenomenal athlete across the board for sure.
Yeah, he's one of the most impressive natural athletes I've, compete against and just been around. There's a few freaks on my football team that just, pop into mind right away. But yeah, Spencer's one of those guys that's just, when he jumps, it just looks differently than everybody else. He almost just like teleports an extra few inches in the air every time. Very, very explosive. Just a lot of it seemed natural, because that's one of the things, like, probably you could attest this better than me, but out of anything you see people doing in the gym, like jumping's the one thing that's really hard to coach. Like you can increase someone's vert a certain amount, but some people just have this freak, jumping ability.
Jumping and sprinting, I would put both of those in that same category of, we can make that better, but it's going to be inherently capped. It's so genetically determined. And this, like a longtime athlete, when you get around people who are just fast or who can jump, it's just a different world. You're like, I could train for the rest of my life and I'm never going to be able to do that.
Yeah. I saw you running some 40s the other day, by the other day, I mean, like, it was probably like a year ago. Working on your starts, how'd that go?
It's getting better. That's one of the big things I'm working on right now, is I want to be able to sprint again, because when college and sports ended and you just fall in love with lifting, then you generally stop sprinting. And so it's like, I don't remember the last time I really opened up, full out sprinted. And so the biggest thing I'm working on right now is getting to a point where I can open up in full sprint and not like blow my hamstring. But yeah, that's getting.
I remember the last time I really opened up sprinting. It was right after I was trying to come back from a knee surgery, my third year of college, or my second year of college, and I blew my hamstring, and I haven't done it ever since.
Yeah.
I was like, I've ran really fast, but I've never tried to like really open up. Like, I literally get to like 90%, and then I know, I'm like, okay, I'm there. If I push it any harder, something bad will happen.
That's sprinting is one of those things. It's one of those things.
Don't pop a hamstring.
Yeah, it's one of those things more than most, where if you stop doing it, you lose it really quickly.
Yes.
So any recommendation to the younger crowd if you're still coming up, like just don't stop sprinting. Because once you stop, it is a enormous pain in the ass to get back to being able to really sprint again. And it's funny because you think about what we did back in the day. It's like, think about a normal day when you were at the U playing football. It's like you sprint all the time.
Yeah, warm-ups, conditioning, agility
Yeah.
drills. Yeah, it's constant. And to the younger kids out there, if you don't like conditioning because it's hard, um, just go run a 5K, like go run 3 miles, and then decide right then and there, like, okay, do you want to keep sprinting or do you want to like run 5K for the rest of your life? Because that's way less fun than sprinting.
Yeah, sprinting is way better. I have no interest in the long aerobic game. Important. We need it, but yeah, like I would much rather just run like interval repeats than have to go run a 5K.
I got a good challenge for you if you want to
All right,
do
what
it.
are we looking at here?
I actually just finished it. I'm sure you've heard about it. The David Goggins 4x4x48
Ooh,
challenge.
what is it? I know David
You ever
Goggins,
heard
but I
of
don't
it?
know the challenge.
He came up with this a year ago, and then he did it again this year. It's just one of his like masochistic, like just it's a mental thing way more than anything else. It's run 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours. So you end up running 48 miles over 48 hours, but it's broken up in a really bad way where like I haven't gotten more than 3 hours of sleep since today's Wednesday, since Sunday.
Yeah.
I went out Monday and was like, I went for a 4 mile run here in between classes of work. I was like, I want to do that challenge for a while. I think I'm going to do it. So I finished the run. I went home and asked my wife, and I just like I kind of made a deal with her. I'm like, okay, I won't let this affect like me being at home. I'm not gonna make this like a big deal. So I just try to go about my life as normally as possible. Um, Other than like getting out of bed at midnight and then again at like 3 a.m. and jogging, limping 4 miles. It was terrible.
So this actually, I think, segues to an interesting topic that I wanted to get into, which is part competition, part mental toughness. Because I think having spent a little bit of time around you, I can attest that you are one of the most competitive people I know, and also one of the most mentally tough individuals at the same time. And so I would love to know, with your background as an athlete, is that mental toughness something that you've had, or is it something that you really worked on and built over time?
Yeah, the first part of the competitiveness I was born with. The mental toughness over the years, I've realized more and more that you can train it. Um, I don't. I think there's a lot to it. It's easy to be mentally tough when you're in really good shape. I'll tell you that. Like, it's a lot hard to be mentally tough when you're out of shape. So, um, I, I, I always have to like open with that because I think mental toughness is awesome and it's very valuable and it carries over into everything you do in life. So, in my opinion, it's always worth training that. Um, just like we would train any weakness or any skill. It's something you can train. Um, so yeah, that being said, like I think I don't know if I've always been mentally tough. I've always been very I've always been a risk taker. Uh, I've always been pretty kind of stoic in a way. Like I think it's just like that macho mentality, which I've had to like kind of grow out of. Um, like I remember trying to like never cry, like thinking it was weakness to cry, right? Like I think a lot of males go through this or struggle with this. Not showing pain if you're in pain. Um, just kind of, shrugging it off. So I was really big into that and I like pushing myself. Um, I think that learning the difference between that and mental toughness, like just kind of like, I don't know, almost like toxic, trying to be tough guy thing, which I fell into that trap. Like I had to grow out of that and realize like, uh, what real mental toughness was, which is really, I wish I had like a great definition just ingrained in my head, but it's really, I think just the ability to remain calm under, extreme or uncommon circumstances. That's all it is. Like you can, nobody's so mentally tough that, they row a 7 minute 2K. I don't know why I'm using rowing as an
It
example.
sucks.
What's more relatable? Running. So let's say someone runs a 7 minute mile, and that's the most mentally tough person in the world. You put them next to someone who runs a 6 minute mile. That person who runs a 7 minute is not going to all of a sudden win the race because they're so mentally tough that they just, refuse to lose. Like they're not as good of a runner. So it gets, it can be misleading. It's not like people who are mentally tough just like pull out these miracles out of their asses, like left and right. Um, it's more just the ability to remain calm. So like people who ride around in ambulances are extremely mentally tough, especially in a very specific way. Of they could walk up to a scene that's completely chaotic, and they check their heart rate. It maybe jumps from like 88 to like 92, and everybody else is like freaking out, panicking. So it's really just about keeping it cool, and where that does make you, I think, a better athlete, and gives you the advantage in competitions is there's a lot of decision making that happens. Like athletics is not just athletic ability, unless you're talking about maybe the 100-meter sprint. There's very few things that happen in the course of 10 seconds that you can really have an impact over. But I'm sure there are, certain thought processes and things that you practice, and you think about pumping your arms and you lift your toes. Like there's definitely thinking that goes on. But smart athletes are usually able to come away with better results. And I think being mentally tough for me has made me a smarter athlete because it's allowed me to make better decisions when maybe my competition's a little foggy headed, or they're a little, I'll use CrossFit as an example. Like you go out for a final workout at the CrossFit Games, and Dave Castro just is like all of a sudden announces some workout. You don't even realize he's like talking. You can barely hear him. And then he's like 3, 2, 1, go. And I don't even know the workout is. So I can sit there and panic and, run around with a chicken, like a chicken with his head cut off. Or I look over and this guy's doing clean and jerks. I'm like, okay, I'll start doing clean and jerks. And so I do 5 and I set the bar down, and I just calmly ask my judge, I'm like, so how many are we doing? So there's, in a lot of different areas, whether it be on the football field, mental toughness can be as simple as someone pushes you after a play and you just refrain from retaliating because you don't want to cost your team 15 yards. It plays out all the time. And chime in whenever you want. I feel bad. I'm talking so much.
No, it's fine. It's great. It makes my job easy.
You can move into the training part of it too, and how that's trained. Like there's just there's a ton of different ways to train it, but really you put yourself in scenarios like just being mindful of when you work out. Like simplest thing for anybody who's training, and I think my first exposure to really difficult, challenging CrossFit type workouts was in college. We had a great strength coach, Matt Bayless. He's actually the head at Notre Dame right now. He's really moved up in the ranks, and he got his dream job. After being he was like a grade school PE teacher or something like that in South Bend. So, work hard, show up every day with a great attitude, and dreams do come true. He's an amazing dude, but he would push us. And that was my first experience of like kind of high intense circuits. It was at the very end of our workouts in college. Sometimes it was just a challenge where we'd like hang from a pull up bar, and they'd always put us, by positions, like put you against your competition. So it was like you and the guy who's trying to take your job and pit you against each other. Everything was competitive all the time. But that I really thrived in that. And that was the first time I'd really had to push my body in workouts to the point where like felt like I was going to puke. That didn't happen in high school. So when I was first exposed to that, I realized I was like, oh, this is this is crazy. But then you feel so accomplished afterwards, and just, the first time you do it, feel like you're going to puke. You kind of give in before you really realize what you're capable of. But you force yourself in those scenarios, and you keep coming back and just showing up. That's one good way to develop it. Um, and then, breathing is huge. Like, I can't tell you how many people get in workouts and they're taking like 2 minute rest breaks and they don't realize it. And you just calmly like kind of walk over next to them and be like, hey, just take a big breath in and a big breath out. Okay, go pick up the bar. And like, they're breathing so fast, they're literally panic breathing, keeping their heart rate elevated. They don't even realize it. They don't even realize that like nobody needs a 2 minute rest break, after doing a set of 5 deadlifts. But it's just something they've never been exposed to, that of, working out fast for time or something. So um yeah, and I've been blessed to like have been around some of the best in the business, with mental toughness, Navy SEALs and some different experiences that I've had, that really just gave me so many more tools. Um, so I think it was something that I developed it early because I was around really good coaches, and just they held us to very high standards, and I am kind of a pleaser, and so I just kept pushing myself to meet those standards. And then later on in life, I've realized like you can train it, and it also it looks very different. I can be or look like I'm very mentally tough in certain things. Um, I can go with a lack of sleep, very, very effectively. Some people don't. But there's other areas of my life where I'm weak as shit. There's certain things that I am not mentally tough, and I don't have a lot of discipline. Um, and so, those are the areas that, that I need to focus on. But I've realized, to bring this full circle, by improving in certain areas, by working that mental toughness and going and facing challenges head on, actually seeking out challenges, it's helped me in those weak areas too. So it's definitely I think a worthwhile pursuit.
For sure. Yeah, I think two things there to mention and unpack. The one that I totally agree with, I agree with everything you said, but the one I just want to kind of highlight is
How many don't agree with you?
the mental toughness bit. It's kind of like physiologically when shit hits the fan and fatigue starts happening and the brain's assessing what's going on in the periphery, and it's trying to like shout alarm mode at you, and it's trying to get you into this moment of like panic and freak out, because it's like, there's like, we're in alarm mode. It's the ability to just take a deep breath, accept, like, not run away from that. You have to be comfortable sitting there, taking a deep breath, like, I'm okay. Things are going to be fine. Take a deep breath. Let's assess what's going on. I'm going to be okay, right? But to your point, the fitter you are, the easier that becomes, because your threshold for that alarm keeps getting pushed farther and farther. And one of the hardest parts when people are trying to get back into working out, right? Because once you stop and you try to get back into it, it gets way harder, because you get a couple minutes into a workout and that alarm mode is going off big time in your head. And it wants you to stop. It's trying to get you to stop. It's trying to get you to panic and freak out. And being able to take a step back, just take a big breath in and out and say, I'm okay. I'm not going to die, right? Like, I will get through this. We'll be fine. Let's just take this one rep, one step at a time. And I think that is incredibly important and really essential to highlight for people, is that is very much a trainable thing, right? And just be fair with yourself and how you're going to do it. Give yourself graded exposure, right? Like, don't choose a challenge right off the bat that you're just stacking the deck against you, right? Like, you work your way up to that over time. And I think you'll be surprised where you end up in 3 months if you're smart with how you approach it. Like, maybe you don't go from, I haven't done shit for a month, to, okay, well, I'm going to go like do Murph today, right? Maybe not the best strategy, but we can get you there over time, and you're going to be in a really good place.
Yeah, and it's like training a deadlift or a snatch. You know, you have to do a bunch of reps. No one picks up the bar day one. Doesn't matter how good of coaching you can watch 1,000 hours of YouTube video. You go to pick up the bar for the first time, you're not going to do it right. Everything's going to be off. Nothing's going to feel familiar. But someone who's done thousands of repetitions picks up that bar, like when you talk to Spencer Hennell. I mean, if you watch that guy snatch, he's amazing. He's one of the best Olympic weightlifters, of the early CrossFit days, if not the best. Um, so yeah, and when you're talking about people who are new to training or have been out of it for a while, and you know, it's the exact same thing. Like, it's not that you're mentally weak because you showed up and you wanted to quit halfway through the workout, or maybe you did quit halfway through the workout. That's totally normal. Um, the fact is like you overcame something just to show up. So you already had some success. You already had a win, and just approach it again and modify your strategy a little bit. Um, and then that second time you'll be more successful. Set yourself up for success. When I took off and did this 48-mile running challenge, um, I set myself up for success based on where I was. So I didn't train for it. A lot of people do. I could have trained for it. I probably would have felt better and ran faster. But I decided to do it on a whim. And it sounds extreme for most people. I've done multiple like 52-hour no sleep challenges where I'm up working out, doing physical activity the entire time. So to me, because of my past, this wasn't as extreme. So for me, I set myself up just in three ways. I said, I want to run the whole thing. Like, even if I'm feel like walking, I'm going to run the whole thing. I didn't run fast. Most of my miles were around 10 minutes, but that was a small goal that I know I could accomplish. Even I haven't been doing a lot of running lately, but I knew I could keep at least jogging for that. So I didn't set myself up saying, I want to run 7-minute miles for the entire challenge. That would have been a complete failure. There's no amount of mental toughness that would have allowed me to do that. Uh, so I set myself up, for success that way. And then another goal was to not interrupt my daily life. Like, I still coach all my classes. I was here at 5 a.m. coaching, and then as soon as I got done, I'd go for another run. I was at home helping out with my kids. So I didn't want to interrupt my daily life. And then I also didn't want to mess up my body. So I kind of, listened to my body throughout and just checked in every once in a while and made sure I wasn't doing anything that was going to be detrimental long term. And like, honestly, my knee was pretty sore going into it, and it actually feels better now than it did 2 days ago. So like, I started, I took precautions. I kept my running slow, but that should be no different than somebody starting up in the gym, or how they approach, getting back up to the gym. Get back in the gym is just, set up some really realistic expectations and make it more about just showing up and doing the work consistently, and less about, some sort of imagined, perceived like performance that they have to be able to do, or else this is just a waste of time. Like, you got to find, you got to find the journey is, the what you're there for. It's not, there should really be like no expectations when it comes to fitness.
For sure. And I would say, I think that those expectations, that's where having a good coach is so important, because you have enough experience as an athlete that you can set those parameters for yourself because you know yourself really well. But for the people walking in the door who are maybe a little bit frightened to actually be in the gym, or this is like way outside their comfort zone, they don't know themselves that well. That's where having a coach is so important, because the coach can help set those expectations and the standards. And here's what we're going to do. Like, here's the thought process. Here's what we're going to focus on right now. And the coach can define the range and kind of what we're going to define as wins, right? And so I think that's another important point to bring in here. Like, the value of a coach in this is enormous.
Yes. And then the conversation that happens with that coach. I have an athlete I coached yesterday that, we've had multiple conversations. She wants to feel good outside the gym. She bikes a lot. She skis a lot. We were doing overhead squats. Her form was looking great. She could have done more weight. I was like, well, you want to put on some more weight? Like, that's looking pretty easy. And I was like, kind of checked myself. I was like, what do you think? Like, what do you want to do? Because you've told me you like feeling good outside here. Like, what you're doing right now is great, and you're going to benefit from this. Like, do you feel like challenging yourself weight wise, or do you just want to walk out of here and feel good about having a good day? She's like, I just want to feel good about having a good day. So we stopped right there. And that's because of the communication that she had given me, that I know to do that, you know, because I don't have a dog in the fight. I don't care if she overhead squats 115 or 180 pounds. Like, to me, you know, if it were me, I'd want to overhead squat 180 because that's how I'm wired. But that's not a win for her, you know, because if she throws some extra weight on there, and then, you know, feels a little shaky and tweaks her shoulder and it's just sore for the next 2 days, that's not what she signed up for. So yeah, a good coach will keep you in check. They'll keep you safe, and they'll also, you know, great coach is going to listen to you, and coach you towards your specific goals in the right way. So the communication is huge. You know, for clients, like, do some kind of deep soul searching, figure out what you really want, and let your coach know that. Because if you don't tell them what you really want, you know, you start making progress, they're going to get excited, and they're going to want you to make more
Hmm.
progress, and that's natural. I mean, that's what coaches should do. But not everybody wants that.
Yeah, without question. So I think a topic I would love to circle back to that you mentioned earlier when we were talking about the mental toughness bit is the separation and thinking of mental toughness as I can never express emotion, right? Because I'm a guy, I'm a man, I can never express emotion. It's not okay to cry. And I can appreciate that for sure, because if you grow up playing sports and you're in a locker room, like, that's really poo-pooed, you know, like it's just, that's not really what you're being trained to do. You're being trained for the exact opposite. So what are some things that helped you, I think, distinguish the mental toughness that we've been talking about from that idea of mental toughness is just never showing emotion, never crying, never doing any of those things?
Yeah, it was. And I've had some good role models in my life, so it wasn't like I wasn't totally down that path. You know, I've had some seen coaches cry, you know, and guys in my head I wasn't like, oh, what pussy, you know. I was like, oh, that's really cool. Like, this guy really loves his
Hmm.
family, you know. This is deep. But actually, I got to a point because I was like, so I was, you know, trying to be like that at a young age, that I actually got to the point I didn't even know if I was capable of crying. Like, I'd watch a really sad movie and I'd feel sad, but like I think I went like 2 3 years at one point without ever shedding a tear, and I started to get worried. I was like, damn, this is like, um, not good, you
Yeah,
know.
Kels comments all the time. She's like, I've never seen you cry. And I'm like, yeah, that's true. It hasn't happened. We haven't really had anything that's hit
Oh
that
yeah,
threshold
yes,
yet.
yeah. So I mean, just being, uh, I think, more in touch with my feelings helped. Just more open to that and talking about that, and so the biggest thing that helped me was just meeting my wife. I was in a pretty bad situation, you know, for a lot of years. I was married for 9 years with my ex, and it just wasn't. Neither of us were happy, so it wasn't good for either of us. Wasn't any fighting or anything like that. It was just kind of empty. But, you know, without going in detail on that, like, when I met Allie, she's very communicative, like, communicates great, asks me lots of questions, you know, encourages me to like open up more about stuff. And you know, there's a few times I was like blubbering, you know, to her. I just kept so much inside that you know, I think being forced, not being, she didn't force me to do anything, but just being open to like talking about it and sharing. Um, and then like seeing my children born was a, you know, a big kind of pivotal moment for me. It's just such an emotional experience. Um, and so then when that happened, you know, I like kind of grasped onto it. I was like, okay, you know, remember this, like to, because I think a lot of it's, I feel, you know, I feel sad. I watch a sad movie, I feel sad, right? Like, something sad happens in life, you feel sad. But um, I always try to keep the emotions like at a certain threshold, like, just not. And so it's hard. Like, there's this real fine balance with this mental toughness where there's a benefit to that of not letting your emotions drive you. Like that's a lot of what you're doing is keeping those emotions in check and thinking logically. But I think I had to find a balance to where I am able to tap into those emotions because I think that's what I wasn't allowing myself to do is to feel emotions really fully. And so once I realized I could do that, it was like it was eye opening. It was very like for me, it was like very therapeutic when I finally like just broke down with Al. I was like a I was telling her she shouldn't marry me because I had all this baggage, like I had, some debt I had to pay off. Like I just wanted to get all my stuff right before I moved in that next chapter of my life, and I didn't want to like drag her into my mess that I had created. You worked for me at the gym, like you kind of got a little bit insight into it. I was way in over my head. I don't feel like I don't regret too many things, but opening two gyms, I regret in a huge way. Like I had a great thing with one gym. I had a grasp on it. I had a huge impact on a lot of people. I went and opened two more gyms, and all of a sudden I felt like I was useless. Like I felt like I didn't have an impact on anybody, and I was just dropping the ball everywhere. So um, it was hard. There's also a lot of good that came from it. Like there was, like I know our clients were still in good hands most of the time. We had great coaches like you, like all our coaches really genuinely cared about people. But anyway, I just had this mess of a life, I felt like, and I didn't want to like bring her into it. I was like apologizing to her. It's kind of hilarious looking back now. But it was like really to just let go of that stuff, and then move on. And she's like, no, I love you. I want to marry you. So, whatever we got to do, we'll just do together. And um, that, that to me was like, I didn't, my previous marriage wasn't like that. I didn't feel like she was on my team 100%. It's kind of funny to use those words, but with Allie, it was like the first time I felt like, oh, she's actually going to support me no matter what, and like I'm going to support her. And so that was kind of a breakthrough thing for me. But yeah, I think especially like if I had advice for males, it's don't I don't know if I was even afraid, but like you have to try you have to just like working on mental toughness, like you also have to learn how to tap into your emotions a little bit. Don't let yourself fall into this trap of always bottling up emotions and being completely logical all the time. Everybody's wired a little differently. I know some dudes who are like super super emotional. They don't have any problem with that.
Mm-hmm.
um, but for anyone out there, like I think you and I are probably relate a little bit in this. You have a very scientific brain, very mathematical. It can be difficult, I think, sometimes, and so just look at that as maybe that's a weakness of yours that you need to put a little time and training into. um, I'm not saying like you need to go therapy or anything like that, but just maybe forcing yourself out of your comfort zone. And that was case for me, like it's out of my comfort zone to sit and just have a conversation with my wife, and just talk about feelings. Like that's very uncomfortable.
Yeah, likewise. I would definitely throw myself in that boat. It's funny you mentioned that because that's one of my biggest priorities for 2021 is to work on that side of me in terms of my own personal growth. When I sit down and think of like, what are the things that I want to try to accomplish in 2021? Growth in that area personally was the biggest thing for me when I thought about like, what are some really good personal goals I can go after? And so it's something that I am actively working on and pursuing in different ways. Like I'm going to be going on a really cool backpacking trip here in April. It's 10 dudes. We're going to be out in the Grand Canyon, and it's actually Michael Caju's putting it on. He's running these like backpacking trips now, which should be pretty cool. But I'm really looking forward to it because that's going to be, I think, one of those situations where get out in nature, be on an awesome experience. It's going to be 5 days long, be surrounded by a bunch of just really cool, awesome other guys, and be able to work on yourself in that way, which can be difficult to do. And I think that another way to do it, my brother-in-law has a really awesome men's group in Austin, Texas, and they meet once a week on Wednesday nights, and they just get together and just chat and talk about, hey, like, how's life going? How are relationships? How's business? How's job stuff? And so it gives them that consistent outlet to be able to have real meaningful conversations, because sometimes that can be hard, right? And you need to be surrounded by the right people, I think, to be able to pull that off sometimes. Uh, and just be willing to laugh at yourself a little bit along the way at the same time,
Yeah,
for sure.
that sounds awesome, man. And that's, I think now more than ever, that's really maybe this message is uh, what needs to be out there more because it's been a year of like a lot more isolation. There's a lot of bad stuff happening because of it. You know, it's really unhealthy for us to be isolated and not communicating and not, you know, commingling. Um, and, you know, and also just with the, I don't know, like occasionally you'll see headlines and stuff and um, it sometimes things can be like a little bit overreactive, but you know, every once in a while I find myself thinking like, man, am I just uh, a piece of shit? Like just for being born a man? Like it's and dude, like trust me, like it's there's for every time I say that, there's like 500 women who are ready to say like, oh, honey, like you don't even know how yeah, how much shit we have to
Mm-hmm.
deal with. Like don't go. I'm not feeling sorry for
Yeah.
myself, but um, yeah, I've heard, man, I've heard just too many sad stories lately of guys, I think, just feeling hopeless and in despair. And we've all been there in some way, shape, or form. You know, some more than others. But again, it's just like you know, we tend to bottle up those feelings and stuff. And so I think that it's good. You know, it sounds like you have some great resources, and you know, I think it's awesome that you're sharing that stuff, James, because I think more guys need to hear it specifically, and I think girls need to hear this too. You know, because they can, you know, we're all responsible, right? For we if we have a friend who's struggling, like we're all responsible. If we see it, we need to be able to get that person help. So just knowing that there's more things out there that might, you know, help some guys who are feeling lost or, you know, just it's hard, man. Lots of unemployment this year. Like that really that hurts everybody. But especially like a lot of guys kind of wrap up their self-worth in, you know, their job and their productivity and their ability to feed their family. That can be really, really devastating to somebody's self-esteem. Um, just been a
Yeah,
tough year.
absolutely. One of the biggest things that I want to do with Rebel moving forward, now that we're slowly getting to a point where I can probably actually pull this off, is for me, it's always been about the community and the people who are involved. And so, as the COVID situation calms down a little bit and I'm allowed to do these, I want to have more situations where we can have, right, like training camps or weekend long get togethers where it's an opportunity for people in our community, guys and girls, to come together and just be surrounded by a bunch of other really cool humans that are going to be on a similar journey as them, that can help support them in what they're trying to accomplish. And like just come together for 48 to 72 hours and have a really good time. It can be a nice reset button for people because you can get in this groove and life to where, especially after 2020, you can start to feel really alone in your journey and what you're trying to accomplish. And so, yeah, hopefully once I actually can, I'm working on putting those together. It'll be a little bit of time before.
I got a great
Mhm.
idea. How about you bring one to Las Vegas once I get a gym open down here?
Let's do it. I'm all for it.
I'm laying some groundwork right now, so hopefully we'll have a spot here in Las Vegas in the next 6 months. And we really want to put an emphasis on hosting seminar. Like we want to really set up shop in a, you know, with the structure that we have. We'll have basically 52 weekends a year booked with um, you know, different experts and seminar and stuff going
Let's
on.
do it. I would love that because the experience bit for me is where I'm going to spend the vast majority of my time, simply because that's where I think I can help provide the most value and give back the most for people and in their lives. It's like this is where it's like I can get really bored pretty quickly just talking like sets and reps and like how much weight do you lift. Don't get me wrong, I'm obsessed with performance and I think it's awesome, but it would be I would be disappointed in myself if I never like took the scope of what we're doing beyond like, oh well, how much do you deadlift, right? I'd be very disappointed in myself if we couldn't expand beyond that limited scope as a company and what we do.
Are most of your Rebel Performance peeps train at home, or do you have a pretty broad mix?
We have a pretty broad mix right now in terms of people who are either at home or their gyms are still open. It's entirely dependent upon what state they live in, to be honest. So we have a lot of the one-on-one individualized, personalized training, but we're trying to push more and more people into a team-based training atmosphere where you have a forum where you can connect with other people, you get to compete, you get to have fun, you get to throw down. And so it's like obviously not as good as the real thing in person, but I can tell you from being a competitive athlete for the vast majority of my life that I miss the locker room and my friends and just throwing down and having a good time more than I miss my actual sport. And so my goal is to try to recreate that for people remotely as best as I can. And then we have quarterly in-person meetups so we can bring the like actual face-to-face component to the table.
That's awesome. Because yeah, that's so I've been in Vegas 3 years, and really I started coaching just because I missed it. So started coaching a gym here in September, but for 2.5 years I didn't really ever go to the gym, and it I realized how much I missed it when I got back in here, and just the relationships and everything else that you build, and being able to celebrate successes of people and see them do well. And yeah, that's something that's really, but I trained the entire 2 years. So I'm getting as like training at home is great. I was very productive. I maintained my fitness. I did a lot of good things. I lifted some weights. But the social aspect and the community aspect is huge, you know, and I didn't have that at all. So it's been nice to get back into that. And that's really a big key component of it, I think, for anyone training at home. It's great, and you know you're getting the physical part of it, but there's I think another huge part of it that boutique gyms can offer, you know, and or really any gym can offer if you can find like kind of your group, your crew. So that's a really a huge benefit of gyms, which is why it's such a goddamn shame all these gyms are being shut
Yeah.
down. But that's I'm sure you've gone over that with other folks on the podcast, so we don't have to dive into
Yeah,
that
like my
one.
viewpoint on this, and people can disagree with me, but it's just, yeah, I don't think that you can tell a small business that they have to close their doors, uh, especially now that we have more data on the mortality risk associated with exposure. It's like, how can you tell a small business owner that they have to close their doors? That's the beauty of capitalism, right? Like, all right, open your doors. If people are comfortable, they'll come. If they're uncomfortable, they won't come, right? And then the business owner makes the decision of, well, is it costing me more money to have my doors open to pay the bill? Like maybe I just have to close for a little bit. But yeah, that's another huge one that we could dive into. But I know that you have a class coming up here in a few minutes, so I want to make sure that we're kind of on top of your time. Let's wrap up with where can people find you, more about you, what you're doing. Just if they've listened to the episode, they enjoyed it, and they want to follow Tommy Hackenbruck or potentially reach out and connect. What are the best places for them to go for that?
Email is tommyhackenbruck@gmail.com. It's pretty straightforward. Feel free if anyone wants to reach out. Instagram is probably the easiest way. Most people are on there. If you're not on social media, good for you. I'm very torn on it, but I'm I have an account and I'm somewhat active on there. So it's at Tommy Hacksaw, and if anyone sends me a DM or whatever, I'll respond to it. And yeah, pretty soon I'll be I'm coaching here in Vegas, and pretty soon I'll be opening a gym here with a couple other really good people. So hopefully down the road, if anyone wants to get in touch, just, book a trip to Vegas and swing by and come do some training.
That'd be amazing. Tommy, thank you so much again for chunking out some time this morning in between all of your 4-mile runs and limited sleep.
Hey, I finished, man. I just finished at 8 a.m. So thanks for pushing this back a few minutes so I could get that last
No
run
problem at all,
in.
man. Really glad we got to connect. This was amazing. We'll have to get together in person here soon. But yeah, thank you for tuning in, everybody. Be sure to go follow Tommy and all the really cool things he has coming up here in Las Vegas.
All right. Thanks, James. Appreciate it. Good catching up.